For 13 years, football had a punchline, and his name was Harry Kane. The most lethal striker England ever produced, and the man who couldn't win a single trophy to save his life. So watch him closely here, because this is the exact moment the joke finally died. In a country that wasn't even his own. Now it's 2026. He's 32 years old, and he's walking out for a third World Cup, with the same thing missing that has always been missing. Here is the contradiction that has run his entire life. The numbers were never the question. Football's most reliable scorer was branded football's most reliable loser. So this is the question this story will answer. Not whether he can score, he always scores, whether it ends with something won. And it's happening right now. The punchline. He's born on the 28th of July 1993 in Walthamstow, East London, an ordinary corner of the city. Nothing about the start says superstar, and the game agreed with that. At 8 years old, Arsenal's academy releases him. The reason, reportedly, not athletic enough. Tottenham take a look and, at first, pass him over too. So the boy who would become England's captain starts out as the boy nobody wanted. Which is why the climb is pure graft, not a shortcut in sight. In 2011, the loan years begin. Leyton Orient first, learning the game in the lower leagues. Then Millwall. A hard physical education in a hard physical division. Then Norwich. Then Leicester. 4 loans, 4 different dressing rooms, and one persistent verdict from the doubters. A slow, ordinary striker who'd never make it at the top. Slow. Ordinary. Those are the words they used about the man who'd rewrite England's record books. But that reckoning was still years away, because in 2014-15, the dam of doubt finally cracks. He breaks through at Tottenham. The goals come in floods, from anywhere, off either foot, penalties, headers, poachers' tap-ins. So of course they find a new label. Not a talent, a fluke. A one-season wonder. Enjoy it while it lasts, they said, because it won't. One-season wonder. That was the phrase. That was the ceiling they built for him. So he answers the only way a striker can. Back-to-back Premier League Golden Boots, 2015-16, then 2016-17. A season isn't a fluke when you do it again, and again. 25-goal season after 25-goal season for the better part of a decade. And here's the part the just a poacher crowd missed, the passing. The drop into midfield, the vision, the assists. He wasn't only finishing moves, he was making them. So he becomes Tottenham's greatest modern player and England's captain. The talent question is closed, settled, over. But a new one opens, a crueler one. Because for all the goals, where were the trophies? The meme. 2019. He captains Tottenham to the Champions League final, the biggest night in club football. And they lose it. So the narrative that will define him hardens like concrete. Great player, never wins. And the internet is listening. 2021. This time it's his country. He captains England to the Euro 2020 final, at Wembley, on home soil, with a nation holding its breath. And it goes to penalties. And England lose. So close he could touch it, and it slips away again. And that's when the joke becomes the story of his career. Harry Kane has never won a trophy. Football's cruelest meme, attached to one of its greatest scorers. Think about the cruelty of it. The problem was never that he failed to deliver. He delivered every single week. The problem was everyone around him, on the biggest days, fell short. So by 2023, he faces the hardest call of his life. Stay at his boyhood club, chase the Premier League scoring record he's within touching distance of, and maybe never win a thing. Or leave home, at 30. Walk away from the record, the city, everything he's ever known, for a shot at the one thing that's always escaped him. So he goes. Bayern Munich. A reported fee of around £100 million. A reported £100 million for a striker leaving home at 30 to finally win. And on the pitch, it's instant. The goals don't slow for a second. He tears the Bundesliga apart in his very first season. And Bayern win nothing. His first season in Germany ends trophyless. The curse, apparently, can swim. It followed him across the sea. Sit with how that must have felt. He'd gambled his home, his legacy chase, all of it, on ending the joke. And the joke got louder. But here's what the meme kept drowning out. What he was quietly building for his country. Because along the way, he becomes England's all-time top scorer. And he passes Jimmy Greaves as the most prolific English goalscorer in history. 84 goals in 118 caps. No Englishman has ever scored more. Not one. So the individual greatness was never in doubt. Only the silverware. And a shelf full of records with no medal on it is a very lonely thing. The dam breaks. 2025, his second season in Germany. And this time, it happens. Bundesliga champion. The first major trophy of his entire career. 13 years of near misses, finals, penalties, punchlines, and at last, a hand on a trophy. Football's most reliable loser had won. And they name him Bundesliga Player of the Season for good measure. Not just a winner, the best of them all. So the man who couldn't win one doesn't stop at one. 2025-26 becomes a domestic double. The Bundesliga title retained. And then the cup. The DFB Pokal final and a hat-trick. 3 goals on the biggest day from the man who never turned up on the biggest days. That's the clip from the very start of this film. The arms wide, the tears, the roar. That is a decade of doubt leaving a man's body in a single moment. And a third straight Bundesliga top scorer crown, 36 goals. Of course. The goals were never the question. 36 goals in a season, a third straight top scorer crown. In Germany, they simply couldn't stop him. So we arrive back where we started. The present. A 32-year-old with medals now, records already, and one empty space left on the shelf. His third World Cup. And the one trophy that's still missing is the biggest one of all, the one that turns a great player into an immortal. And the opening match tells you he came ready. England beat Croatia 4-2, and Kane scores a brace. 2 goals that equal Gary Lineker's all-time England World Cup record of 10. And with them, he becomes only the second Englishman ever to score at 3 separate World Cups. 10 World Cup goals for England. He's drawn level with Lineker, a record that stood for a generation. So England march into the knockout rounds. And the man who spent 13 years as football's punchline is now the last thing standing between his country and a dream. Here's the contradiction one final time. The numbers were never the argument. It was always the silverware. And the club drought is over now, broken, twice over, in a country that wasn't even his own. Which leaves exactly one empty space on the shelf. Not a club title, not a scoring record. The World Cup. The only thing he's never touched. And here is the extraordinary part, it isn't a memory to look back on. It's live. It's unfolding, right now, within a matter of weeks. The boy Arsenal released at 8, the one-season wonder, the nearly man of 2 finals. Standing, at 32, 1 tournament from the only story left to write. The joke is already dead. The last empty space on the shelf is the World Cup, and for the first time in his life, the chance is live. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to Beyond the Boots for more. The boots tell the story. We just follow the footsteps.